It's Turntable episode 4. This week we got Kelli and Melissa from Perth and Colorado, and Dylan that was doing just fine from the plains of Saskatchewan. And Andrew and me, and don't forget Mr. Producer Man who runs the fucking show. Well, they say you don't call on Google Hangouts. You don't spit into the mic.
Wait.
You don't go respond to those work emails, and you don't mess around with Jim.
I always forget about that last part.
Yeah.
You said that right as I spit into the mic. That's amazing. Hey guys, welcome back to the Turntable, episode number 4. I think we have a really interesting episode today, Brooklyn. What do you think?
We have an interesting show because everybody's here.
Everybody's here!
Yeah.
So today we have a really great panel for y'all. First off, we have Melissa. Hey, how's it going, Melissa?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing pretty well, thank you. We also have your co-host extraordinaire, Kelli Meehan.
Hello.
Hello. And there's Dylan.
Hey.
Hey, Dylan. We're happy to have you as well.
Thank you.
Very much so. So the way that this show is going to work is it's basically sort of like an album book club in a sense. We each brought an album to the table. Everyone has listened to all of these albums, and we're basically going to discuss them, give you, the audience, our thoughts, and give each other our thoughts as well. So I brought the Kate Bush classic, Hounds of Love. It's one that I've been meaning to come back to, and we'll see what I thought the second time around. Dylan, let's go to you next. Real quickly, what did you bring to the table today?
Yeah, so I brought an underrated hip-hop album, I feel like, from the 1990s. It's called Blowout Comb by the group Digable Planets, which is a band that I am quite fond of. Unfortunately, they only did 2 albums. This was their second and final one. And yeah, I think it deserves way more attention than it currently gets, even though hip-hop fans, I think, know of it, but not so much the general public. So I think it deserves a lot more attention. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Kelli, what did you bring for us today?
I bought a relic of the scene that I grew up in. I bought 2005's Motion City Soundtrack's Commit This to Memory.
All right. Melissa, how about you?
Yes, I brought Angel Olsen with My Woman. She's kind of an indie folk artist that I don't feel like a lot of people talk about, and I'm curious to know what you guys thought of it.
And Brooklyn, how about you?
So yeah, I picked July Talk's self-titled debut album. I believe this is from 2011, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, these guys are a really fun Canadian blues rock band. Before I went and saw the Foo Fighters last year, these guys were my favorite concert ever. And this album, I think, is just really cool. It needs to be talked about.
All right. Well, we are going to be starting with my album, Hounds of Love by Kate Bush. So I'm going to be that hipster person real fast, y'all. I loved Running Up That Hill, Deal with God before it blew up. It's one of those songs that I just like randomly heard one time and immediately was like, what the hell is this song? And so it was only until like maybe 2020 or 2019 that I actually listened to Hounds of Love for the first time. And I liked part of it, but like it didn't stick with me. So I wanted to give it another shot, and I'm so glad that I did. I think that this album is fucking amazing. Personally, I don't think there's like 99% no skips, and even that 1%, if I'm playing the album all the way through, then I won't skip it. And we'll get to what that one is later, because that's obviously my least favorite. But I was talking about in the last episode about Graceland by Paul Simon and how like the compressed drums in that were like highly influential. I'm a dumbass because this came out before that, and the drums in this thing sound fucking incredible. It's so just well balanced, and like the production, it just like lets everything have its moment. It just gives it its space in this like witchy cacophony of sound. And these are some of the most gorgeous sounding songs ever. Even things like, I think it was like Break the Ice, where it's such a unique song, but like it's so beautiful in like the way that it's composed. And I think that Kate Bush, she's got one of those really unique trilly voices. But she is so smart and she knows how to use it so effectively. Because in lesser hands, it probably could have become a little annoying. But I think that she just did such a tremendous job with this album. It's absolutely incredible. I'm so glad that I brought it back. What are everyone else's thoughts on Hounds of Love?
I loved this album. I had never actually heard it all the way through. I'd only heard like different songs from the album, but not like from start to finish. So that was really fun to do. My like relationship with Kate Bush has been basically the only song I really knew of hers for years was This Woman's Work. My friend made it on like a mixtape for me, it's like a very like intense sad song. And for whatever reason, I never really like explored her work more. But that was like back in high school. I had only heard that song. And then with Stranger Things, that's kind of how I got more introduced to her, to be honest. And then I just through the years, I've kind of heard a few of her songs, but now hearing it from start to finish, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I feel like she's very like theatrical. And there's like a lot of like layers and textures going on throughout the whole album. And I really like the back half of the album that's a little bit more experimental and dreamy, which I'm sure maybe that's the part that most people don't like, but I really enjoy it.
I want to like bring up like the stuff, some of the stuff that you're talking about, because I thought about this the last time I was listening to it. You know who I think really likes this album, especially that part that you were talking about, the latter half? Goat-Ye. I think Goat-Ye is a huge fan of the latter half of this album because I heard some clear influences in the comparison to these two. But yeah, whatever. Everyone else, go ahead.
So I'll be the grumpy man in the corner.
No!
I thought this was just fine. So my general thought with this album is that it doesn't have its footing, or it's like it's trying to do so much. I think where it hits is really good. I really dug like Cloud Busting. The Big Sky I think is a song that I think Andrew like really appreciates, because I got a lot of like Genesis from there, especially like in the guitar work and whatnot. But then like I think
tight.
I think now, especially with how Running Up That Hill got into the mainstream, where you have that as the opener, it sets the tone, and then I just think it takes a bit of a dip. I wasn't as sold of like on And Dream of Sheep and Under Ice. I really wish that like Waking the Witch was almost earlier, because whenever that came on, I was like, oh, like this is what I'm looking for. And I agree with Melissa where the second half of this album really kind of carries otherwards. But yeah, that would be my biggest kind of gripe.
Ouch. Anyone else? Go ahead.
Kelly? Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought so. This is like an album that I had heard about a lot, just like in different music circles, and like it was one of those ones that I was kind of worried about going into it, because Kate Bush has always been like a blind spot for me in terms of my music listening. So I was like, oh no, what if I don't like it and everyone's gonna hate me? I thought this was incredible.
Let's go.
Yeah, just the world that this like album is able to like create, just like sonically, I think is so impressive. Like it's such an impressive soundscape that they create with like not just even the productions, which is like super layered and impressive, but like also like the different sound effects, and like they even incorporate like vocal samples from I think like movies and stuff, like dialogue pieces, which I thought was really cool. Yeah, just so many like really cool moments on this album that I was not expecting. Like I was not like the various different like I guess emotions that she's able to tackle in this album, where you have songs that are just generally like very pretty. Like the last song on the album, I think it's called Morning Fog, which has just like this beautiful, beautiful instrumental that was immediately one of my favorites when I first listened to it. Also, yeah, Under Ice and the Witch song that I can't remember the full name of. It then
Waking the Witch.
yes, uh, there's songs like that which are also like kind of like disturbing and like the subject matter and like the storytelling that she has, which is really cool. And yeah, I thought it was really really incredible, just everything that she was able to do on this album. So yeah, it's one that I definitely look forward to coming back to in the future.
So my history with Kate Bush, I guess, if we were to throw down right now and we said talent show, I reckon I could run into my closet, grab a red dress, and do the whole fucking Wuthering Heights dance and win. Like, I love that video. I love that song. I've been listening to it since I grew up. And then I've liked like Babushka, and these are all ones that played on music TV channels, you know. So I've just grown up seeing and hearing. I like how you describe Kate Bush's really truly voice, and it really hits you or it doesn't. It's very unique, you know, when you're listening to a Kate Bush song. But I hadn't heard like a full album, so my perspective is coming into this one in the 80s and loving more from the 70s. I can see a bit of the difference and a bit of the growth, so I tend to lean towards the earlier half of the album. Really fascinating how everyone really saw that divide, you know, and is either landing on one side or the other. I like Hounds of Love, the title track's great, and Cloud Busting, like what Brooklyn said. But yeah, I don't have the Stranger Things connection, so I'll always just like running up that hill just for what it is. And it is one that marks that difference between, like, ever since I've said Babushka, that's all I've got stuck in my head is like, yeah, like it's really more poppy, and this definitely goes in a bit harder. And as I was sort of saying, leaning into what the 80s was going to start turning into, with more synth based and more production based and just that more serious maybe storytelling. So I thoroughly enjoyed this one, would come back to it.
Nice. Yeah, just the amount of people that kind of cite this album as, you know, one of the best of like the 80s, or just like their favorite albums in general. It really did make me go in with like the first time with like my analytical brain. And then this time for me, I do like the first half of the album better than the second half. However, I feel like they're two completely different albums almost. Like it feels sort of like a double album in how it kind of changes. Because the first half of the album is like those big, grandiose pop like anthems. And then it becomes the more experimental, unique kind of piece that I think that once you get to Under Ice, I think once you hit to that part, if you are still with the album, then you're going to just like be floored by it. So I can see how, like, if you don't get past the first half of the album, you can't really get into the other half. I totally get it. I personally just was like, as Brooklyn alluded to earlier, I like the Genesises, like the Peter Gabriels, and like these big experimental soundscapes. So yeah, so basically, I'm going to start us off when it comes to scores. Y'all, this album's perfect. This is a 10 out of 10 for me. Oh, and I forgot to tell you guys, 1 through 10, but you can give it like, you know, 0.75 or 0.69 or things like that. But this is like a 10 out of 10 for me. So I will say that my favorite song is Cloud Busting. I think that Running Up That Hill is a technically better song, but Cloud Busting just has those beautiful strings. And that outro is just luscious. It's like you're being floated away on like a bubble or something like that. It is just absolutely breathtaking to me. My least favorite one, the one that I might skip from time to time, is Waking the Witch. I think that it was just a little jarring, but as I said, I was along for the ride, so not bad, just my least favorite. Let's go to Brooklyn next. What are your score, least favorite, favorites, all that jazz?
Well, funny that you mentioned your least favorite song, because that's actually my favorite, Waking the Witch. I respect the swing that it went for, and it hit. I was quite fascinated by it. My least favorite, I'm gonna go with Mother Stands for Comfort. I found it a bit of a drag, and like I understand what they were trying to do. I think the drum beat is trying to keep the life in that song, but I'm just not 100% sold on it. And yeah, for score, I would give this a 6.5 out of 10. I would say it's still a good album. Go back for the singles, but
God, my heart. Melissa, let's go to you next.
now you know how I feel last week.
Oh, I see how this episode's going.
Thank you, Bar, because I feel like this album, I'm gonna make it my whole personality now. This is 10 out of 10 for me. I honestly wish I got to listen to it a bit more before this episode, because I think I got to listen to everything at least once through. So I definitely am looking forward to revisiting this one. I think my favorite song is probably Cloudbusting as well. But my new favorite song that I hadn't heard before is probably Hello Earth. That song's just weird and long and cool and experimental, and it's very kind of Pink Floyd-y, so I love that. And probably my least favorite, which this is like a cheat, is Running Up the Hill, because I've heard it too many times. But I still love that song.
That's fair. Honestly, valid. Dylan, let's go to you.
Yeah, I think I need a little bit more time with it before I can give it a 10, because it's so new to me. But so I'm gonna go with a 9 out of 10 for now. I really love this overall. As far as favorite and least favorite, I'd say, while I think there are objectively better songs on the album, I think The Morning Fog is the one that I've listened to the most and probably will listen to the most. So I think that one's probably my favorite, if I'm being honest. And I don't know if there's really a clear least favorite song on here. I guess maybe just by process of elimination and Dream of Sheep, maybe.
Yeah.
But I just think there's stronger songs on the track list. But yeah, overall, there's not really a clear miss on the album that I could call a bad song. I think everything is extremely consistent from front to back.
And Kelly.
I'm going to give it an 8.5. Want to piggyback off what Dylan's saying. I think consistency is the key there, and just feeling like you're on a journey. Some of the albums can be very jarring, and I feel like this one was just like the next one was like, oh, this, oh, now this. So I found a lot of that. I'm a sucker for a title track most of the time, so I'm going to go Hounds of Love as my favorite. And I was the same. I thought And Dream of Sheep is just the one I can't recall, so that's the one I'm going to go with, as maybe just didn't hit as hard.
All right. So with that, we are going to be moving on to Melissa's album. Melissa, tell us more about it.
Yeah. So I brought My Woman by Angel Olsen, and I have to shout out my beautiful, talented sister. She's the one who introduced me to Angel Olsen, and we very much have a bond and connection from her, I feel. And this was just an album I wanted to revisit, because I really like all of her albums, but this was just one I was like, I kind of want to listen to it again and see how I feel about it. And for the most part, I feel pretty great. This album actually is kind of similar in a way, because the first half is very more poppy, upbeat kind of songs, and then the later end of the album is more experimental and dreamy. So it actually feels like a good companion piece with Kate Bush. And I love that it's 47 minutes long. It's nice and short. I do love Angel Olsen's lyrics. I think she's a great lyricist. And I feel like she has a rawness to her with like her vocal delivery. I do prefer the more introspective, kind of dreamy songs towards the end of the album a bit more versus like the beginning that has a little bit more upbeat to style songs. But yeah, what did you guys think of Angel Olsen?
Just like on film cover, Melissa, I'm going to completely disagree with what you're saying. It's so funny. Everyone's
This
just
is
got
why
that
we
happy-
brought you on.
Yeah. Well, no, it's just very funny. Melissa loves the more saddy, romantic-y sort of
Yes.
things, and then I will love the more upbeat, poppy sort of things. So I definitely vibed more with the first half. I loved, where is it? I liked Never Be Mine, and I liked Shut Up and Kiss Me the most. The first half of the album, and then as it's dropping off, I'm sort of like, okay, we're getting slow. We're slowing down pace. Like the train is like chugging along here. But I think you're right. The lyrics are beautiful. So it would be nice to have another listen through and maybe even like be able to read on like Genius and like actually see sort of what's being said. And the voice there is really clear, and that's nice as well. A beautiful, clear voice. So I enjoyed my time with it.
Kelly, I'm so glad that you brought this up because I disagree. My biggest problem overall with the album was the production, because if it was like 2, maybe 3 songs where there was that much reverb on her voice, I probably would appreciate it more. But the reverb on her voice is just, I don't think it sounds good throughout the entirety of the album. Because I want that rawness to have its moments to actually shine, and I think that when you slap that on there, you're kind of taking away. It's kind of starting to become disingenuous. However, so I was kind of busy this week. I had family over; they were here the whole week, so I didn't get to listen to every album twice. I got to listen to this one twice, and I'm really glad I did, because I was gonna give it a lower score on first listen. Because second time around, I really got to focus more on the lyrics, and I think that was the saving grace for this album, because I think that they're simple, but they're effective. It's just the right choice of words, just kind of like strung together to really draw out that emotion. And I've got one question for everyone. Does anyone else think that Angel Olsen really loves Roy Orbison? Because I got strong Roy Orbison vibes off of this album. And I like Roy Orbison, so that's a good thing.
I couldn't tell you a single Roy Orbison song.
What?
Pretty Woman.
Pretty
Pretty
Woman.
Woman.
That's
Well,
one. Okay.
Yeah.
I probably
Well,
heard them. I
Andrew-
just don't know them off the top of my head.
Andrew, I'm glad that you mentioned what you did, because I disagree with you. I love this from top
Controversy.
from top to bottom. No, I agree with what Melissa was saying, and how it's similar to Kate Bush, where there's these like 2 separate halves, but I think these halves come a little bit more together. There's more of an attachment to it. I agree with Melissa as well. I enjoy that second half. There's just that level of haze to the effect, and like in the guitar especially. Like I totally get why Melissa picked this, because it reminds me a lot of like Pink Floyd and kind of setting the atmosphere of it and whatnot. One of the cool moments of this album that I really wanted to highlight is actually Shut Up, Kiss Me, because I think that does a really good job of setting up, or like matching the emotional kind of feel with the songwriting, because like you think about like the whole moment of like Shut Up and Kiss Me, usually like you're kind of grabbing somebody, and I feel like the production kind of backs up that emotion that you're trying to get out of the song. So I really appreciated that. I thought that was really smart. But yeah, I think you have like a really solid tracking from, I would say, from Not Gonna Kill You to all the way down to Woman. I think is just banger after banger.
Well, Brooklyn, I disagree with you in that. I thought this was really good. I didn't quite love it. I will say I'm not as crazy about the beginning of the album that we were talking about, the more popular stuff. It's not like bad. It's just not necessarily for me. I also feel like at points there are parts. Well, I think her lyrics are really good. At points, I feel like it's almost a little too simplistic, or maybe not simplistic, but like repetitive at points where there'd be certain just like lines that like repeat again and again and again, and I get a little fatigued by it after a while. Like on "You'll Never Be Mine" or "Never Be Mine," whatever it's called. I was not a fan of the hook on that song, to be honest. Like, just I thought it was a lazy seems like a strong word, but it was just like "You'll never be mine, you'll never be." It felt a little monotonous to me, to be honest. But no, once let's see, where's the exact song where it started to change? I think from "Not Gonna Kill You" onward, I think all the songs from there were like, it got like really, really good. It got into the more like kind of stuff that I like. The more it had like a very prog rock almost feel towards the end of the album, and I love like just the how each song was like developing. Even though, well, some of them you could argue maybe could have been trimmed down a bit. I think "Sister" was probably my favorite song on this album. Not to get ahead of myself to the scores and favorite tracks, but
Yeah,
I think
go ahead.
that was my favorite one. I just loved the way that song. It starts out very laid back, and then it like just develops in like it's like what 7 minutes long, and just the instrumental by the end is like super grand and just beautiful. And yeah, I thought that was an amazing song. And yeah, I think her voice is really good too. Maybe not. I could kind of see where Bar is coming from with like the vocal effects and like the reverb, but it didn't bother me too much. Yeah, overall, it's a solid album. I don't know how much replay value it'll have for me overall, but there's definitely some songs on here that I'll come back to.
Yeah, this is definitely one that like I kind of agree where I don't know how much I'm going to come back to it, but I have a lot of respect for it for like the strengths that it really does have. Uh, Anyone have any like final thoughts before we move on? I'm getting the scrunch no. Okay, so Melissa, this is your album. Give us your score, your least favorite, your favorite, and close it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say kind of revisiting it and maybe having more of a critical ear. I would give it a 9 out of 10, I think, because there's not like, I don't think every song is perfect by any means, but I really do enjoy a lot of these songs though, and I revisit a lot of these, but not all of them. So I'll give it a 9 out of 10. I knew "Shut Up and Kiss Me" would be Kelly's favorite. I just knew that when I submitted this. I was like, that will be Kelly's favorite. So I feel satisfied with that. But my favorite, really, on a given day, I kind of go in between "Sister," "Those Were the Days," and "Woman." Like, those are the three I like, depending on the day. I'd say for today, it's "Woman." It's probably my favorite. And then for least favorite, I agree with kind of what Dylan was saying, the "Never Be Mine." I do think it's a bit repetitive, and it's one I don't revisit on this album as much.
Well, Melissa, I'm glad I have you on because I disagree. "Never Be Mine" was actually my favorite song
Oh,
on this
interesting.
album.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one that that's the one that actually connected with me the most. And the one that actually like I didn't really enjoy question mark was "Give It Up." That was the one that I kind of like it was that moment where I thought back on all of the songs, and "Give It Up" was like the one that I couldn't really remember like any of the melody for. So by default I kind of went with that one. As I said, glad I gave it a second listen because it did bump my score up. My score is going to be a 7.25 out of 10. It's really good. But as I said, I don't know how much I'm going to be coming back to it. Let's go to Kelli.
Yeah, so I did enjoy the majority of it, as Melissa was bang on. Like, of course, I was gonna like "Shove and Kiss Me." That was my favorite. I like "Woman" as well. When in the back half of the album, from doing two separate ones, like that's the one that went with me. I can't stand long songs, so "Sister" just was not the jam for me at all. Replayability definitely is going to come into it. So for me, I'm going to even out bar score, and I'm going to go with the 6.75.
All right. Math, cool. Dylan.
Yeah. So overall, I thought it was really good. Yeah, it's again the first, not half, but like I guess like the first third is not really entirely my cup of tea. So, but yeah, from there on, I think it it's like very solid from like track 4 onwards. So like I'd give it like a probably 7.5. And yeah, as I said earlier, favorite track is probably Sister, and least favorite track is Never Be Mine.
I'm going to enjoy my island. Brooklyn.
All right. Well, I'll keep it a nice round number. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. I think this is one that I'll definitely be going back to. My favorite song has kind of already been covered with like I'm kind of the same between Sister and Woman. I like them both because they kind of hit similar notes. I'll probably pick Woman. I think just because the guitar work I think is a little bit better in there. And for the least favorite, I'm gonna go with the closer with Pops. I kind of get with what Andrew was saying, where there's so much effect on it, it kind of takes away from like the piano that's in the production of it, and then it's like I feel like you're one choice away from that being like just a really solid closer on an already great album.
All right. Well, Brooklyn, that leads us into you. Tell us more about your eponymous album.
So July Talk was a band that was shown to me by my little brother, actually, in high school. These guys had just been kind of coming up as I was graduating, and they had this really cool sound, like Leah Faye and Peter Germanis as the vocalists. Peter has this very like rough, coarse delivery to him, and Leah has this very nice sort of soft delivery. But the thing that I really enjoyed is that like before I saw these guys in concert, you got the sense that like Leah was a really like soft spoken, very like timid kind of person, and then Peter was kind of the rough one. But then when you see them live, it's almost the other way around. Like Leah's very she very much like commands the stage, and she brings out a lot more emotion in her performance. But I think this is the best of their 4 albums that they've put out so far. This leans into a lot of the blues rock elements that they're really good at. The singles from this one that got a lot of push were Paper Girl and Headsick. Paper Girl was a big hit. But then you get like really cool ones like Summer Dress, I think is a big hit of the fans. Like that one got a ton of singing, I guess whenever they do play it. But then you get these like really cool raw ones like My Neck. I've Rationed Well is a really cool performance. Whenever I got to see these guys at Brewing Company a few years later, they played the song, and Leah they started the song and they're like, all right, everybody on the ground, like on your knees. They cut the lights, and then there was one lamp in the middle of it, and I love when bands try to encapsulate all of like the atmospheric elements of a song. But yeah, there's so many other good ones, but I'm curious to hear what everybody else thinks.
Yeah, I thought it was good. Like my thing is with like rock music is, I don't know, I feel like this type of like super polished, almost like kind of radio rock type thing is not really my vibe. I typically like stuff that's a bit more, I guess, has a bit more of an edge. So this was like fine. I will say I like the delivery of the male vocalist. He reminded me a lot of Tom Waits. I got a big Tom Waits vibe from his delivery. So I thought that was cool. That was very nice. And the female vocalist was really good as well. I don't know if necessarily their styles really like combined well. It almost seems like I was getting different vibes from both of them, which is cool in a sense. You get different elements from each track, but like it was a bit jarring at points. Yeah, I mean, there are certain songs on here that I'll be honest, at a certain point, a lot of these songs just kind of sounded the same to me. I'm gonna be real with you.
I can see that.
Like, maybe that's like if I listen to it more, then I'll be able to differentiate more. But I thought Guns and Ammunition was decent, even though I'm not a fan of like the pop rock stuff in the background. I did a terrible impression of that.
All
like,
the millennials.
So what I'll tell you then is that don't like listen to their second album, but don't listen to the third and fourth, because that is their bassist, and as their discography goes on, he kind of gets more of a hand into the production of it.
Okay, I see. I think also like some songs that I did enjoy. I really liked Head Sick. and I really liked. Let's see, what was it? Let Her Know is one that I really enjoyed as well. So yeah, overall, I can't see myself coming back to this a whole lot, but I mean, it wasn't bad by any means. Just kind of not really my thing, I guess.
I'm going to put my teacher hat on for a second. Miss Kelly, I saw you raising your hand.
You can tell I work in a freaking school. I'm like, yes, this one here, please. Follow me. Yes, so as is everything in my life at this point in time, I reacted in memes to this one when I first started hearing it. So when the male vocal started coming through, I was very much the girl there going. But then the female vocalist came through, and I was very much the whole. He's like, ooh.
Oh, the Brittany Broski.
Very much became that because I don't like. I very much don't love a gruff male vocal. It's just not the tone I have in my life very much. I have a very petite Welsh gentleman in my household, so I don't hear a lot of like gruff tones. So that's just not the sound for me. But the female vocalist I thought was gorgeous. And so anytime she was on, I'm like, yes, more of her. And then when you started getting more of the back and forth, I'm like, now I see what we're doing. Like the when it was more the duetting stuff, I'm like, yeah, I can see that juxtaposition. But I definitely think she was the saving grace for me. I'm glad you said Paper Girl and Summer Dress. Those are the two that stand out far and away the most to me. And I echo a little bit what Dylan was saying. I hit the halfway point and I went, I can't tell when a new song's starting and the next one's beginning. Like that's just sort of what it started coming to for me. I liked the blues rock of it all. So I didn't love Guns not to get ahead. Guns and Ammunition should be my least favorite song, but I liked the guitar work on it very much. So if I wasn't getting something from the vocal and the lyrics, I was getting something from the music side. So I still found myself having an enjoyable time, but I just wasn't super high on it.
I want to clap back on one thing where you guys the general consensus is that like you can't really tell when songs are changing from one to the other. I understand what you're saying, but I think that works in one aspect, in particular how they transition from The Garden to Guns and Ammunition, just because of how they fit in each other's keys and pitches and whatnot. I think it's a very natural kind of transition, and there's aspects where I wish that was more, but I could see from a different perspective where it's like, all right, this is beginning to be mundane or what's the word I'm looking for?
Repetitive.
Yeah.
So I had no problem with the transitions, honestly. It helped keep this album to a crisp 43 minutes, which I really appreciated, especially this week, honestly. So I'm not gonna lie. You had shown me one song by July Talk before, and it was a lot more subdued. So once this album started with The Garden, I was like, am I playing the wrong album? Like I was like so taken aback by like the gruffness of it. Like it felt like he was, like one of those like this is going to sound so weird, but I hope you understand when I say this. Like one of those gruff, muscular mountain men with like the big ass beards. I was like,
just looked up pictures of them, and that is not what I expected.
No,
No, yeah,
no, not at all. So like, imagine my surprise when I heard The Garden, and I was like, "Is this what I'm in for? Because if this is what I'm in for, let's fucking go." I will say that his voice, Peter, what was his name?
Peter Germais.
Peter, yeah. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it didn't. And I don't think that's his fault. I think it was just like what maybe like her voice would have worked better, or like vice versa, and like things like that. Not to say that it's bad, but as Dylan said, and I couldn't piece it. Like I was thinking to myself the entire time, who does this guy remind me of? And so when Dylan said Tom Waits, I'm like, that's fucking it, Tom Waits. And I like Tom Waits. But I really dug a lot of this album. Paper Girl, everyone's bringing that one up. That was actually one of my least favorite ones. There was just something about that one that I could not get with. But then songs like Having You Around, that was one where I thought the dynamics between the two really worked. That dichotomy in that song I thought was really beautiful. The other thing was like, I like both of their voices. Sometimes their voices didn't blend cohesively for me. Once again, not their fault. Because as I said, I like both of them. But yeah, I think that this album has a lot of strength. It's produced pretty well. Yeah, so I dug this one. I dug this one quite a bit.
I will echo a lot that's been already said, and I'm sorry, Brooklyn, but this was just not my cup of tea.
No.
I didn't enjoy this at all, really. But I'll try to be positive though. I liked when Peter's voice was more like soft. There wasn't that many moments, but like the songs where it was a little slower, like I actually did like his voice, but I felt like it was going hard for most of the album, and I struggled with his voice specifically the most. I kind of agree with what Kelly was saying. Like when Leah was singing, I was like, yes, girl. Like I was way more into it, and maybe that's just my taste at the end of the day. I love sad girl music. Like that's like my genre. So it's just something I'm gonna gravitate towards a little bit more. And yeah, I don't know. His voice for me at times was like nails on a chalkboard. Like
I could see that. You're not the first person. You'll be the last.
But I did like a lot of the guitar. It had like a very like bluesy kind of feel to it, and I liked a lot of that part of it, like the music. But yeah, I didn't quite connect with this, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's like a lot of like Southern Gothic-y grit to this that I really wasn't expecting. But like if you know me, I like Algiers, I like Hosier. Like I love that kind of like dirty Southern Gothic kind of vibe. So in that regard, like the instrumentation and the production, that was right up my alley.
Yeah. My favorite moment of instrumentation is it's either in Guns and Ammunition, and you get the little like hoo-hoo-hoos that's like, when you leave, I cannot sleep. And I think they do a really good job building tension there. And then especially in Paper Girl, when it cuts out and it's just the drums and the bass, and I think that bass line is doing just a really good job of driving home the song, and how they build in there. And I think this like the synths in that are just so light, and it meshes well with everything else that was already going on in the song.
All right, any last thoughts before we move on? Cool. Brooklyn, this is your album. Score, least favorite, close it out.
All right. Well, score is going to be an 8 out of 10. I'm still torn as to whether or not this or their second album is their best record, but I think this has a lot of the essential hits. My most favorite is honestly picking between The Garden and Guns and Ammunition. I'm going to go with The Garden because still to this day, The Garden is their encore closer, which is so weird considering this is the opening track. My least favorite would probably be Come Down Champion, because it sounds so different from everything else in the record, and they use this one as the setup for the Garden in their shows, and I'm just like I want to get through this song so that we can get to the other stuff.
Let's go to Kelly next.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a 5 out of 10. My favorite was Paper Girls, and my least favorite Guns and Ammunition.
Okay, Dylan.
I'll go give it like a 6. I wasn't super crazy about it, but I maybe it's just the personal preference thing. I don't necessarily think it's like bad music, but favorite song, Let Her Know. Least favorite, I wasn't a big fan of Black Lace, so I'd probably say that one.
Melissa.
I'm sorry. Probably give it a 4 out of 10, just because I don't see myself revisiting it. And like Dylan said, I don't think it's bad music. It wasn't for me. So I kind of have to go with that. I think my favorite was Headsick. I found that the most catchy out of the album, and I agree. Come Down Champion. I don't really even remember that one, so I'll go with that as my least favorite.
Brooklyn, I'm gonna do you a favor. This is a 7.5 for me. I really enjoyed this. I didn't love it, let's say, but there was enough good elements to it that I really, really enjoyed. Unfortunately, I think that there's a reason that sometimes there are some Canadian bands that only resonate in Canada. It feels like. But I am going to agree with Melissa and Brooklyn. Come Down Champion was my least favorite song. Lyrically, I thought that one was just like the weakest. And it kind of came across a little bit too bitter in some regards. And it kind of like, it didn't hit me emotionally because of that. But Summer Dress fucking rock.
Yeah.
Like that one's fucking slaps. Let's go. I'm adding that to my workout playlist.
They always bow for
All right, not too long, Brooklyn, because we were going to get copyright stricken. All right. So we're going to one Dylan Van Fine. Dylan, tell us about Blowout Comb by Digable Planets.
Sweet, center stage. Let's go.
Mr. Producer Man's really good at this.
Yeah. Yeah, so Blowout Comb, like I said, this is the final and only second album from the group Digable Planets, which is the trio of Butterfly, or Ishmael Butler, who is also known for like recently he's in a very experimental hip hop group called Shabazz Palaces, but he got to start in this group with Ladybug and Doodlebug. They're all named after insects. I don't necessarily know why, but it's interesting. And yeah, I mean, I always recommend this group to like people who love groups like A Tribe Called Quest or De La Soul, like that kind of like jazz rap lane they fit real nicely into. And yeah, I mean, I feel like, well, most people know them for like, they're kind of like a one-hit wonder because the song that most people know them for is The Rebirth of Slick or Cool Like That, which was the one that got all the radio play and like was played in commercials and stuff. But this album was like, it kind of took that like very commercial sound and went in a completely different direction and had like more serious subject matter and like a lot more, I think, ambitious from its instrumentals. Like this is almost like an equal parts a jazz album as it is like a hip hop album. Like there's a lot of not just amazing like sample work on this album, but also live instrumentation. And that is like really, really just like beautiful and fantastically arranged. Like the Art of Easing has like a phenomenal sitar like that plays over the hook that comes out of nowhere, and it's like little instrumental moments like that throughout the album that are really cool. Also love the horns that come on KB's Alley, which is basically just an instrumental song. You hear the instrumental come back later on one of the later tracks. I believe it's now I'm blanking on the title of the next song, but still. Yeah, there's so many great moments like that. Also, like lyrically, they talk a lot about like the struggle of like being Black in America and like different topics like that. Also, just like living in New York. Like there's a song. God, I'm really bad with song names, but the song with Guru from Gangstar, where they're talking about just like coming up in Brooklyn, that was really great. Guru.
Burrow Check.
Burrow Check, yes.
Yeah.
And Guru's feature on that song is amazing. Also, just like they have this thing where like they don't often always like rhyme in their lyrics. They would go up for like a lot of lines, just like saying a lot of stuff that doesn't rhyme, but somehow they make it work. Like it just sounds so smooth the way they do it. I can't explain it. But yeah, this is an album that I am glad I got to revisit because I only just like recently discovered it like a couple years ago, and I really wanted to come back to it just because like there's like some very serious subject matter that they talk about it. It's just got like a very nice jazzy sound to it that is like really good to just like put on and listen to. So yeah, I love this album quite a bit.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Yeah, that figures as much. If I had thought about this before the episode started, I would have put in that clip from B-Movie. I like jazz. Which, to answer that question, you sure as shit I do. So when you put this into the group chat, I immediately typed in all capital letters, "Let's go," because I had been wanting to dig into this group a little bit more because I love Rebirth of
See
Slick.
what you did there.
Good, I'm happy. I love Rebirth of Slick. There's just something special about that song, and I've been wanting to kind of explore more of Digable Planet's work. And so I really like this album. I don't quite love it. I think all three of them are phenomenal MCs. Their lyricism is top tier. And they kind of slip between hip hop MC and beat poet, which I really love. I'm that pretentious asshole. One of my good friends in college was a beat poet, and I was always just there with the snaps and like, yeah. My biggest problem overall, I have two, is that the album's too damn long. Some of the songs kind of start to blend together because it's kind of the same tempo. Even with their flows, it's kind of the same tempo for little bits and pieces. And the other thing that I really had a problem with was the inconsistency of production. The way that they blended the samples and the live instrumentation was absolutely phenomenal. I loved that. But sometimes the vocals got kind of pushed, and I couldn't really make out what they were saying. And I was just kind of like, I want to hear them, but the instrumentation kind of blanketed them sometimes, and that really kind of took away my ability to actually kind of connect or vibe. But overall, as I said, all three MCs are fantastic. Like they have that native tongues kind of collective sound that I really dig a lot. I'm saying that word again, but I don't intend to. But yeah, so like there's a lot of things I do love. The second half of the album really starts to click, especially once we get to Burrow Check and especially Agent 7 Creamy Spy Theme. Like that was the moment where I went, okay, here we go. We're getting a little bit more experimental, widening this a little bit. Nice. Then as you said, the horns on KB's Alley, like amazing. Fucking loved it. Yeah, so like the album was good at the beginning, a little tedious, but then like towards the second half of the album, I was in. I was so in.
Yeah, I'll echo a lot of the same kind of things here. Yeah, the only song I had known of them before this was the Rebirth of Slick as well. So thank you for bringing this because I had never heard any of these songs before. And yeah, no, I think because I only got to listen to it the one time, I really liked the beats and like it's very like laid back kind of hip hop jazzy vibes. I was really digging listening to it at work. I was just like, this is great. Working or like listening music at work, I feel because it's just very like vibey. With that said, I feel like I didn't get to like really listen to the lyrics. I think like listening to it again, I think I'll appreciate the lyrics a bit more because they are very like, I think there's a lot of layers to them. And so I just feel like on a first listen, it's hard to kind of get everything. Yeah, I think it's like I like the songs on their own, but like as an album, I feel like there's not a lot of peaks and valleys, I guess. It's kind of all in the same beat or like, I don't know. It doesn't like, there's not like a lot of dynamicness, I guess, with like listening it from start to finish, in my opinion. Like I liked all the songs like on a singular level, but as an album, yeah, I felt like the length was a bit long. But overall, like I really enjoyed it. It was very interesting and not something I typically listen to.
Yeah, I'm not very. No, I'm going in. I didn't know that, but I'm going in.
Go. Take authority.
I'm not very versed in hip hop. It's definitely one of those genres that until I'm sort of exposed, everyone sort of gives me like, here, Kelly, take this. I'm like, oh yeah, and I like this. And it gave me just that real mid-90s great. I like the smoothness of it all. And as everyone's sort of saying, it was a vibe. Like I put it on and I was the same as Melissa, like put it on, do some computer stuff and be like, yeah, and then just like look up every now and again and like see what song I'm like, oh, I'm really feeling that. So I like when that sort of happened with this album was I would be doing something and be like, oh, I like this, I need to take note of it. Oh, that's Jog It or that's Agent 7. I'm like, yeah, I enjoyed that aspect of it a lot. And as we sort of said, just like the melodies of it all, like the music side of it, really enjoyed. I had a good time. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I didn't really know Digable Planets before this, and I fucking dug it. I really enjoyed this. I think Slowscomb and Black Ego is probably the best 1-2 punch of all the albums that we're talking about today. I thought the Slowcombs in particular does a really good job of just kind of letting you into the world and kind of like having the score part of it really kind of set the tone. I really dug that, and then Black Ego, I think is just another really cool kind of like instrumentation and whatnot. My favorite MC was Ladybug Mecca. I just really liked her delivery. In particular, I think it was a line from Jetton that I really dug. Nation, because I place you on the dynamite, right? The cream into scheming to get it, right? Demeans almighty dollar. That was the first line that really kind of gravitated toward me. The two questions that I guess I got to have for the panel, or I guess in particular for Dylan, they mentioned that they're from Brooklyn a lot. Like in Borough Check in particular, they mentioned it at least like half a dozen times. So it's like, is this intentional? I don't think it is. But then my next question was, it's actually on the closer for Corners. They do like a really, it's kind of a blink and you miss it. They do a reference of like "We Got the Funk," like they almost sample it, and I was like, "Is this intentional or like how does it kind of?" I wasn't sure how it played into the song, but yeah, I also agree with what Melissa and Andrew were saying, and that it kind of all sounds, it kind of mixes all together. Like the first two are great, but then it kind of plateaus after that. I don't get like the dynamicness that Melissa was talking about earlier, so.
I feel like this is me as a white guy saying this. In hip hop, representation for your city is like super important. Especially if you're from New York, like representing your borough is like a big deal.
In the 90s, especially.
Yeah. So that's what I would say for that one. For the other one, maybe they just really like Funkadelic. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, I don't know if it's really much deeper to that with the interpolation. I think it's just kind of like a reference, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I could be wrong.
Who knows? All right. Any last thoughts on this one before we move on to the last album? I'm getting the scrunches. All right. So, Dylan, close us out. Favorite, least favorite, score.
Yeah, this is a 9 out of 10 for me. I love it a lot. Definitely, one that I think, as I said, more people should check out. I'd say my favorite song, I didn't even mention it, but Black Ego, and for a lot of the same reasons that Brooklyn was saying. I love that song, and also like the outro with like the guitar at the end is like so good. Like I love that. Like, assuming I'm thinking of the right one, but yeah. I'm really bad with the names of titles, by the way. So like, there's that. I'm trying my best. And as far as my least favorite one, I'd say maybe Jetton, just because I have this weird, not because it's bad, I like the song, but I have this weird thing where when songs have like vocals or instruments that pan from left to right very frequently.
Oh, ducking.
Yeah. When I listen to most of my music through headphones, and that is like nails on a chalkboard for me. I don't know what it's like. It feels like I'm going insane. Like I actually can't handle it. I have to take my headphones out. If I'm listening to it on speakers, it's fine. But like, yeah. So I'm not crazy about that. So I guess that's like a minor gripe. So yeah, sure, that's my least favorite. I don't know. I don't really have a least favorite.
Okay, let's go to you next, Brooklyn.
I'll give it a funky number this time. I'll give it a 7.77 out of 10.
Nice.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good one. My favorite track is I'm going to go with KB's Alley. Dylan was alluding to it earlier. I really like the horns and the trombone solo. As if somebody who played low brass in band for years, I love what songs give respect to that section of the orchestra. My least favorite, and I think this is, yeah, I would say this is probably the least favorite of the bunch. High and Fly just seems like an unfinished song. It's like, of the ones on the record, it's like a minute and a half, and it just feels like an afterthought.
I'll go next. Dylan, I'm so glad that we have you on because I disagree. I think Black Ego was my least favorite song on this one. It is. I think it's just too long. I think that it gets real repetitive. I think if you like trim some of that down, it would be a lot better. Because I think it's sitting at like 6 or 7 minutes or something like that. And it just, you start to hear the same thing over and over again to me. However, for me, the best song on this album was Ninth Wonder, Black Idollism. I fucking dug the shit out of that song. That one was so tight in the production. The flows were on point. The lyricism was fucking nuts. That one really hit for me.
Wait,
yeah.
Can I add something?
Yes.
So I screwed up. My favorite song is actually The Art of Easing. I forgot to say that.
That's good.
You said that was your least favorite, but I completely forgot about the track list. The sitar on that song, beautiful.
Nice.
Yes.
Let's go to Melissa.
Yeah. Let's see. I think my favorite is Black Ego. I think that's the beat that like stuck with me the most and that like I remember the most. And yeah, I definitely feel like I'll be excuse me, revisiting this album because I really enjoy it for like just working on the computer, like kind of Kelly was saying, just like working and like having it on. Like it's a great vibe. So I'm in between like a 7 and an 8, so I'll give it a 7.5, I think, just on a first listen. But I'm looking forward to like revisiting it again. And then least favorite, I feel like it's being like nitpicky, but I guess Barochek, I feel like it's a little too echoey at the beginning, but then I like the ending of it. But like the beginning of it, I'm like, a bit.
And real quick, I forgot to give my score. It's a solid 7 for me. Kelly, close us out.
It's a 7 for me as well. I like Dog It the most. That's the one, like I sort of said, like I looked up and went, "Oh, this like what I had to check out, like make sure I get the name right for that one." And then I'm the same as Brooklyn. I thought High and Fly. I'm just sort of a fan of those like interstitial little songs on albums. That's never my vibe. So yeah.
All right, let's move on to the final album of the episode. Kelly, tell us about Commit to Memory.
Okay, picture it. 16 years old.
Oh, I'm picturing it.
Okay. Hold on, let me close my eyes.
You're from a regional town where it's like 40 degrees. I'm saying in Canadians because we're more Commonwealth here. Like they get me, but it's probably like your high 110s Fahrenheit. Okay. And you want to be emo so freaking bad. Your whole wardrobe consists of Emily the Strange clothes so much that you dye your hair black, you cut your fringe in. And you go down to JB Hi-Fi because there's not one in your town. You have to fly to the nearest major city to just go record shopping. And you go to the pop punk section and you pick up Commit This to Memory from Motion City Soundtrack because this is the golden era. This is the Fueled by Ramen, Decade Dance. This is Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco, My Chemical Romance. Everything is dominating this era. But you find this album and this band they speak to your anxiety so freaking badly that you just feel seen. So this is one I sort of joke, like everyone loves what they love when they're 14 to 17. Like that's where we find our core stuff. They're the ones that hold the memories. A lot of the Fall Out Boy albums, a lot of My Chemical Romance, I can listen to it now and sort of be like, oh yeah, I remember what it was to feel that, but still enjoy it as the music. Whereas this one for me lives and breathes 2005. There's just something very about the more nasally tones of the lead singer. And as I was sort of saying, just the lyrics, I think, are stronger than anything else that came out at the time. And they're just more personal and actually witty. What I love about Fall Out Boy is Pete Wentz writes lyrics like, my favorite song's Nobody Puts Baby in the Corner. And it's like, so when we like a locket around your throat, I'll weigh you down and watch you choke. You look so good in blue. Like he thinks that's so fucking smart, and it's just not. But that's what I love about it.
Get him, Kelli, get him.
But what I think they write the Motion City soundtrack actually feels like what it was to be a teenager in the mid-2000s. It feels like going to a house party and ringing in the new year with friends. It feels like just going through all those weird fears and thoughts and feelings. And I actually do love the lyricism of especially songs like LG Fuad, like Let's Get Fucked Up and Die, and speaking figuratively, of course. Like the last time I committed suicide, social suicide. Like just being able to push it like that felt very on the nose of what it felt like to be going through the scene at the time, to feel secluded, to feel isolated, and to then want to reach out and feel very, this is who I am, mum and dad. Like it was all very encapsulated in that. Yeah, so this is just one that I feel it doesn't get brought up as much as the big three that I sort of had before as one of the pillars, but I think has some of the better melodies and lyrics of what was available at the time. Yeah, thank you.
All right, the floor is open.
Kelli, you constantly bring me back. When we're together, we're reminiscing. And yeah, when you brought this up, I was like, oh boy, here we go. And it very much, like you said, it taps into that 2005 era, like so perfectly. Yeah, this brought back a lot of memories because it's one of those albums I did listen to all the time, and very much I share the same sentiment of like, yeah, being emo and all those things. Yeah, this was definitely something I listened back into the day, but I haven't listened to it really since then. So it was really fun to re-listen to. I do feel like this is like the perfect kind of soundtrack to just like listen in the car, like for a car ride. I don't know. That's just like the vibe I get. But yeah, no, I'm glad you brought this. It also really reminds me of my cousin because she is obsessed with Motion City soundtrack. And so I was like, okay, other people like it. Great.
So I was listening to this album and I started to get kind of nervous. I was kind of like, see, because like here's the thing, I grew up in that era of like when like Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco and My Chemical Romance were like the big things, and that was just never really my vibe. I was listening to All American Rejects, but as the album went along, I really started to appreciate it. There was a lot of things that I started to like really notice and connect with. Like I think Tommy Thaxton or Thaxton, the drummer. The drums on this album are nuts. That it is really good. I'm not gonna like compare it to like Travis Barker, but like that style was I really connected to that.
I love that you say Travis Barker because Mark Hoppus produced the album, and
did he really?
he's the one that gets on Hangman. So I love that you get that Blink influence because it's all throughout.
Okay. The thing that I really started to connect to the most was, oddly enough, the lyrics. I thought that there were moments where in lesser hands, like these lyrics could have come across as really bad. Like that kind of pretentious, whiny, like pay attention to me kind of like lyrics. But there was a lot of thought and emotion and like effort, I thought, put into the lyricism of this album. Um, yeah, no, I don't really have much else to say about this one. Um, I'll dig in a little bit more when I talk about my favorite song because it's not what I was kind of expecting it to be.
So I'm gonna go off of what Andrew was saying. I was in that same generation, but I was the person that was listening to Fall Out Boy, to My Chemical Romance. This one, I think I did not realize that Everything Is All Right was on this until it came up, and I was like, "Oh, I've heard this song a bunch." And that song is an incredibly underrated track in the grand scheme of all of these songs. Like, I think it's in the same vein as Check Yes Juliet, as Dance Dance, because I think that guitar riff is so catchy. My thing is that this type of music was saturated for myself so much in my 20s. Like, there was a there's a period in my life where like this was all I was listening to for about 7 or 8 years. And then when I came back to this, I was like, I don't appreciate it like I did. Like, I have the nostalgia, but I'm not like, I want to go back to this. There are songs that I really did enjoy. Make Out Kids, I thought was a really, really fun one. I agree with what Andrew was saying in that Time Turned Fragile, like especially that second half. The drum work that he's doing in that is fucking phenomenal. I think this has the best closer out of all the albums we're talking about today, and Hold Me Down. I thought that was just a really, really good banger. But I don't share the same sentiment with Let's Get Fucked Up and Die. I just think that takes a little bit to get into, and like I'd have to kind of dig deeper into that one for the lyrical perspective. But on that first kind of initial listen, I was just kind of like, I don't know about it. But otherwise else, it was a great trip down memory lane.
Dylan, you're a young man. You grew up in this time period.
So I was 5 when this album came out. Here's the thing. I've been on record, I think, over in Multiplex. I can't remember what video I said it in, but I said that the 2000s was the most embarrassing time for music. And I don't know if I fully agree with what I said there, because looking back at it, I was like, I don't know what I was talking about. But one thing I'm not a big
2020
fan of,
showed up, so
yeah. I don't know. It's more of a personal thing, I guess, with 2000s, because it brings me back to a kind of bad point in my life. So I'm not a big fan of most 2000s music for that reason. But I will say pop punk is like not a genre that I enjoy very much. So this album, unfortunately, was a bit of a miss for me. I'm sorry. But, I could see why people enjoy it. It's just, for me, kind of like what Melissa was saying with the male vocals on July Talk. I feel like that I had a problem with it here, where I'm not. For me, the more boyish vocals can be, the less I'm likely to enjoy it. I'm not a big fan of that, and they're very, very boyish on this album. Very kind of almost whiny at points. But so that was a little off-putting for me. I don't know. It's weird because I love punk music, but just pop punk is a bit of a miss for me. So I can't. Honestly, I can't really differentiate what Motion City soundtrack does, like, that's particularly unique in the genre. Yeah, to me, I wasn't a big fan of this album. I'm sorry.
All right. Any last thoughts before we wrap this up? No, I'm getting this crunch from Melissa. All right. So, Kelli, put a bow on this. What is your score, your favorite, least favorite, final thoughts, all that jazz?
Yeah, I think it's like one of the best albums to come sort of out of this big pop punk push of the mid 2000s era. My favorites change over time. Like when I was a teenager, I think I was at the beach and I was listening to this one time, and the boy I liked listened to LG Fuad and said, "Kelli, you're really weird," and that's just kind of stuck with me since I was 16. So I think it's just trauma linked to that. So that's where I've decided to live.
Wow.
I think that's just like, and then I think that's when I started just to wear being different as my badge of pride. So I do have like a bit of a real strong attachment to that one. But Hangman is the one I come to the most. I think it's got the best lyrics, and that the 1-2 punch of Hangman to Hold Me Down at the end. I think Hold Me Down's a perfect breakup song. What it actually feels like to actually go through that and go through the small minutia of leaving someone. But Hangman has I'm just a stupid fuck with brilliant luck and sometimes a bright idea. So shower me in a chorus of compliments and verse I don't deserve. Like that's my all-time most favorite lyrics ever. So I'm going to go with that one. And did I say 9? It's 9. Thank you.
You're welcome. Dylan, let's go to you next.
Sorry, you said me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I also give this one a 5.5. I think that's the same thing I give July Talk. Yeah, again, it's not for me. I gonna notice that. So like again, can't really say that it's bad. It can only get so far for me. So I'd say my favorite song. I actually did like Hangman. I think that was a good song. I did not like Make Out Kids. That's probably my least favorite. But yeah.
Okay. Melissa, let's go to you.
Yeah, I will say Make Out Kids. I love the lyric, I'm fond of Twin Peak afternoons. I was like, yeah.
I kind of figured. As soon as I heard that, I was, Melissa's going to love it.
Yeah, this is a 9 for me. And maybe it's just rose-colored glasses. I don't really care. But yeah, it's a 9. I'd say my favorite is Everything Is Alright. I mean, it's the one I think of when I think of this album. Probably a close second is the LG Quad, or however you say it. I really like that song as well.
Oh, I think we lost her.
Ooh.
Just the audio.
Headphones die or something?
Maybe.
How about now?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, I accidentally pressed the mute button. Sorry. I'm moving around too much. And then my least favorite, I think that's the last thing you had heard. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Least favorite is Together We'll Ring in the New Year. It's just I don't know. It's not a song I like would revisit really.
Brooklyn.
I would give this. I'd go with the 7 out of 10. Admittedly, I think I need more space from the genre before I go back into it and really kind of get back to appreciating it. My favorite track, I was alluding to it earlier, but I'd still stand by Hold Me Down, even though like Everything Is Alright, I think is one that you can't kill with re-listen. It'll just always be that great. My least favorite would be Time Turned Fragile. The second half is great, but I think the synth in the first half just kills any momentum that it tries to carry. It's just very jarring from a production standpoint.
Did you? Oh yeah, you gave a score. You said a 9.
Yeah, 7.
7. Sorry, 7. I'm gonna make an unpopular pick for my least favorite one. Because I'm gonna say Everything Is Alright is my least favorite song on this album.
Andrew, it is 11:22. Get your brush your teeth. Go watch Whose Line Is It Anyway, and get out of here. We do not slander that song.
All right. I don't know. That one to me felt like the record company going, "Hey, we need a song because Fall Out Boy has become really popular." I don't know. It's just I didn't click with me. However, the one that really clicked with me, and I was shocked, but the lyrics got me, was Resolution. Lyrically speaking, that one was just detailed enough that I really understood the emotion behind that one. So this album is an 8 out of 10 for me, actually. This one took me by surprise. If I'm being 100% honest, I was not expecting to like it as much as I did. So thank you, Kelly. All right. So that is essentially it. Real quick, I'm going to ask one last question of our panelists. Just real quick. Aside from the album that you brought, what was your favorite album that you had to listen to for this episode? In order to give everyone time, I will start. And I'm going to go, as much as I think that Commit This to Memory is the better album, the one that I actually enjoyed listening to the most was July Talk. Yeah, I know. outside of everyone else, but that's the one I feel like I would go back to the most often. It's kind of more up my alley. Brooklyn, let's go to you.
So before the show, it was a toss up between Dylan and Melissa's album, and as we were talking about it, My Woman is the album that I would definitely go back to. Just kind of hits everything that I like about alt rock. So
let's go to Kelli next.
Bar, you sent it to me. You're like, Kelli, you're not going to be disappointed in what I chose, and I really wasn't, because obviously it's the K4 Hounds of Love for me.
Dylan.
Yeah, Hounds of Love. That was a phenomenal album. There's really no misses in the track list, like I said, and that's the one that I definitely am looking forward to revisiting the most. So yeah, that's good. That's got to be my favorite.
And Melissa.
I gave it a 10. Hounds of Love.
Yeah, I as soon as I went to you, I was like, I should have put Melissa like somewhere in the middle, because we all knew where that was going. But guys, thank you all so much for coming on. I don't think that there was an album that missed for me, so this is one of my favorite episodes that we've done so far. Not just in terms of the albums, but like just the company and the conversation. So thank you all so much for coming on. If you are watching, please go watch Film Coven, Kelli and Melissa's channel. It is absolutely fantastic. I love getting to watch whenever anything that they put up pops up. And catch Dylan in the leagues and whenever he pops up in anything.
Thank
Brooklyn,
you.
Brooklyn, any last thoughts before we head out?
Drive safely.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Next month, we just finalized the panel. So joining Brooklyn and myself will be Adelaide Spence, Amaru Moses, and Jake Marangoni. So that's going to be a real interesting collection, I think. So for everyone here at the Off Our Stones channel, the Like 500 Takes channel, I am Andrew James Barr, and keep on rocking.